Okay, rough shot please.
All right, we are live on YouTube. There will be that little bit of a lag when the channel loads up, but howdy doody, y'all. Right?
Yes.
We're having a good time. Oh, hang on a second. I gotta blow this out. It smells funky when it doesn't get blown out. It's a what do you call it? Incense stick.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Okay. Do you have
So
a link
hey, hmm.
do you have a link I can share?
A link we can share. Let's see if I can manifest that. Share, copy. I will put it in the chat. We've already been like having a hoot and a holler here for probably pretty close to an hour now. We decided that there was enough content here that we've been talking about. A lot of technology challenges for both of us. My really big one was last year. Did you get that link? I got it in the chat there.
Yes, thank you. I
All right,
did.
you're welcome. So yeah. I mean, there were a lot of things we covered as usual. One of the things, because this is the Aurical stones and there are all these different modalities, and when I post my final version on Rumble, I'll have all of that on there. Don't think we'll go through each and every one, but one of the things you brought up was the dowsing. Dowsing was something that, because I homeschooled my lads, is we talked about dowsing and we made our own dowsing rods and we saw the impact of those, energies from outside of us that we can kind of see. I mean, that was like a kind of, yeah. The fun part is they don't have any memory of that, but it's in there somewhere, right? But the dowsing rods, I think, are a really good way, and it's not hoodoo. People have been using it for millennia, and they try and poo-poo it. Well, there's no scientific evidence.
That's true. Oh, I think people have used dowsing rods forever. They've gold, water, missing objects. Um, oh, excuse me, something's coming in.
I don't
Oh,
know.
that's
Sounds
weird.
like something wants to get out.
Yeah, that was weird. Okay. So I picked them up and straight away I get a hit of copper. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the okay, they're already talking. All right. You're happy to
So what'd you
play, are
get?
you?
What'd you get?
Oh, yes, they're both with me today. Oh, look, we're not having any issues from them today. That's good. My dowsing rods have their own personalities. And for the past week, the one in my right hand, okay, right hand, can you show me a no? Okay, okay. Fine balance. Thank you. The one in my left hand, can you show me a no? All right. Fine balance. Thank you, guys. I love them. I truly love them. It's like if you just allow yourself to this, we've asked the question of what is the lush? What is it that what's the energy that they're taking from us? Well, this is the energy that they're taking from us. These are the abilities that we have. If you allow your energy to flow through your divination tool, whether it be your tea leaves, your divining rods, your pendulums, whatever modality that you use, when you are aware of your flow, your current, your energy, and you know how much you need to generate communication, and then allowing that communication to come in, then you've got to find the truth factor in the information that's coming in from wherever it's coming from. I'm not going to say I know 100% where the information is coming from. Could be another version of myself in the future, okay, they're talking to me now. They like the conversation. They have a mind of their own. If you've heard me in the past speaking about my divining rods, they will tell me when I've put them in the wrong hands. All right. They have mood swings, like when they want to play and when they don't want to play. I've seen it from both of them, so I know they work as they are individual rods. So anyway, I've surprised myself. I've got some videos out there where my housemate has followed me around the house after they hid a couple of objects, and I had absolutely no idea. I wasn't super confident in myself, but I allowed the energy to flow. When I realized I was blocking some of it by the confidence factor, going back to what we were speaking about earlier on, when I allowed that confidence factor to flow, the rods did too. It was like I cleared this energy stream and the rods started to react. Okay, so when they do a certain, one will point ahead and one will point in a different direction. Can you show the audience? Thank you. All right, find balance. Thank you. Find balance. All right, thank you. And when I ask them to find balance, they show me the level of energy by the span between them of how much they've got that I can play with. So it's like this is something that they've taught me. I don't know what others use. You'll find your own feeling with your rods. Say with any kind of divination, you don't need to follow the books. The books can be a guideline, but once you start seeing they don't work for you, you'll find your own path on it. It's about being true to the information that comes in, where it comes in from, knowing your intuitions, knowing your intuitions. I love these things. But getting back to the story, I had success, and it was absolutely a giggle for me because they wanted me to face downwards, so I faced downwards, and they still reacted, so that was really neat. They had to go uphill, fight, against gravity. Look at that, they're giving me my cross is a yes. All right, my cross is a yes. They work the same way others do. And then we have the no, which is wide open. Okay, thank you. Find balance. Find balance. Oi, scanning something. Okay, what are you playing at? Okay, fine balance. Thank you. All right, this is what I got to put up with. So, ask a question, see what they say.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that kind of comes to me that's related directly to the dowsing rods is when we were experimenting with them, when we were homeschooling, one of the things that had happened was my mom had come over and everything was playing out as we were asking. So they would stand there, they would have them perfectly still, and they would close their eyes and it's like, okay, well, think of something or say something, and the rods would respond in concert to whatever it was that was going on. But when my mom took those rods, the immediately, regardless of what was going on, those rods, my mom would be very still, and those rods would just go, and they were on her shoulder. So what was, I guess is that because she was something that they gravitated towards, because they didn't do that to anybody else, even my husband.
Yeah, well, which way was her yes?
Well, we didn't even get that far. Anytime that she would stand there with them, she would just laugh and they would just go, we never even got that far. We could not get them to do anything other than boom.
So that was, to me, that would be a no. To me, that would be a no because of the way that I use my yeses and nos. That they weren't going to respond. They're not going to give you the information. So she would have had to tune herself into these rods because of the energy that she was already emitting. Some people, when they start opening up their abilities, they've got more abilities than they realize that they have. They might have been using them dimensionally, and then they wake up and go, oh, I've got these abilities. You're going to trip and fall a few times. But if you're able to open portals, you don't want to trip and fall and open a portal. All right.
Yep.
There are certain things to it. Anyway, do you have a straight up question for the rods?
Well, one of the things that you and I had talked about was about about what happened last night, because we did the live yesterday, right?
Okay.
All right. So we did kind of talk about that, and about the fact that you got something quite a while ago about what was going to happen on the 22nd.
Before you even finish it, it's already crossed over and given me an X. It's given me a yes. Yes, the answer is yes.
So the answer, my question would have been, it's like a distraction.
My balance.
And
What are you
not,
doing?
yeah, it's like it's a distraction and not telling us, the media is not telling us an accurate story.
So that's your question?
Yeah,
Is the
the media is I don't care if it's mainstream or lamestream or alternative. The media is not giving us what's actually happened.
Okay. Can you reply? Yes, she knows. Yes. Yeah.
They're not giving us.
No,
Huh?
they're not giving us the truth. They're not giving us the truth. And it's done it twice and it made connection. So, yeah, we already know the answer to that. So that's, I think that's a bit easy for them.
Yeah. I mean, it was easy for me because I mean I have a whole set of cards behind me that you and I never even really got to. Because I got up this morning and thought, oh, okay, well that was a big concern, and it's almost like this. It's like the same scenario with what happened several years ago in Seattle, Washington, where everything was planned and bad actors, etc. Now all of a sudden you're seeing all these people in this Middle Eastern country that was supposedly had some conflict there, and they're all talking about how beautiful it is there and how it has the biggest mall in the world and how wonderful it is. So to me, it's kind of saying that there's a definite incongruency here. So what is the truth?
Yeah.
So that kind of gave a little bit of answer for those of us who can't get on a plane and fly out there. And, and it was pointed out with some of the things that had popped up. This is just a Facebook feed. I'm just scrolling through. I want to see dogs giving people problems. I want to see people, doing stupid stuff. I'm not interested in all this other stuff, but what ends up popping up is all the conflict that they're talking about. It's a big deal in the news, da, da, da. And again, what you're talking about earlier is a distraction. It's something that people are being guided towards looking at. And I kind of felt like this morning when I pulled all these cards and asked very definitive questions, it's not like I necessarily need to know, but I think it's important that when we really start going with this Oracle stone stuff, that we're going to probably have to do something that's like a current events, because people have to realize that this is a loosh harvesting system. It's
Oh, yeah.
set up to draw your attention to whatever it is that they feel is necessary. What happened to the New Jersey drones? What happened to the Miami Mall? what
Yeah.
happened to all this gold and silver and all these things that people are talking about was going to make this big shift. Even in real estate, they were talking about, oh, you're going to, pay 1950s prices. Yeah, your wage is probably going to be 1950s too, but sorry, the microphone wasn't particularly close. But hopefully the sound's a little bit better, but
You're fine.
that's kind of like the gist of it, though. It's definitely all these distractions and crisis actors and
Oh,
bad actors. And did everybody like forget about this stuff?
I saw a whole row of kids walking through like they were getting ready to be a set of crisis actors.
Mm-hmm.
I kept saying, what am I looking at? What am I seeing? What am I looking at?
Mm-hmm.
It's like these kids were walking. They had, oh, geez. Okay. They were in a row. They looked straight at me. They knew what they were doing. And they were clean, they were healthy, there was nothing wrong with them. They had backpacks on, and it just looked like they were walking out of a class, going to go and get onto a bus to go off and do a set. It wasn't they were going home or anything like that. They were going off to a set. There was the lights that were set up around the bus were telling me there was that they're going to a set. You don't have lights like that when you're getting on a bus to go home from school. So it's like I had to go, oh, okay, every day there's something. You know how we were talking a little bit earlier, like, I got to a stage where I could sit there and have a conversation with somebody and trance into somebody else's past life. And I call it trancing because you're being careful, you're being cautious, you're just slightly stepping in there, you're taking a peekaboo, and then you're stepping out. You don't need to know everything about somebody else's life. I call that invasion. Um, so it's like with these abilities are there. This is the lush that they're trying to crave. When everybody's turned their head and they're all looking a certain way, it reminds me of bow your head after you've done all your sing song and getting all lively up there and getting the vibe on. Now bow your head to the one da 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 da. And as soon as you bow your neck, that's when you get hooked in, you get plugged up. Straight away, they take your lush, and you're in a love bubble until what, 8 hours later, when you turn around and you start being abusive and nasty and committing all the sins. It's like this lush is the power that we have to be able to look into the future ourselves, to make it better for ourselves, to make it better for the community. While we're looking over here, and this is the thing, this is directed energy. We're already aware of the mud floods, the directed resources zapping the ground and doing, for entertainment purposes. I think it was called the Deagle Report. When they haven't met the numbers, they'll find another way. So to me, right now, we're living in an era where we're seeing this phoenix rising is the double-headed Hegelian dialectic taking place. I look around and look at all the governments right now, and they're all playing sides with each other, yet it's so blatantly obvious. I mean, if this was real, this is the way my brain thinks. um, Everything would have been cut off. Okay, everything, all communications with other countries,
Mhm.
internet services would have gone down, banking would have gone down, the whole infrastructure down. Why? Because of the amount of trade that we have with these countries. Not too long ago, they did the TPPA, Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement or Alliance, whatever you want to call it. And then you find countries that are not meant to be allies with the Five Eyes technology. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Everything I'm seeing at the moment is basically we're living in the medieval ages. This is another medieval period. What they've got out there, the boom boom sticks and everything else, the flash bombs and doo-dah, 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 doo-dah. That's that's medieval stuff.
Hmm.
When you when you know that they've got psychotronics out there, they can play with laser technologies, they can play with invisibility technologies, they can see what's going on in your home and without the cameras because of frequency. We think that those stars out there are twinkle twinkle little star in the sky. Well, now we don't have to wonder what they are because the amount of satellites that are going up there. I'm seeing them all the time. It's so active out here. I'm rural on the top of a hill in the middle of nowhere land. Love it. Okay. Love it. Um, and it's so active. It's so busy. The portals that are opening up left, right, and center. I mean, I've been watching this for years and thought I was bloody crazy. I go to share some of the information, and it's like, oh, they're gonna think you're mental. Oh, you built a professional background, and you're gonna
That's
still
why I
think.
love you so much, man. It's like I seriously, I work in a very 3D world, and it was a couple of 3 years ago. Yeah, it was probably 4 years ago, coming up almost five. Dang, time flies. Yeah, somebody had actually spread around that I was delusional, and I mean, like, hey, I'm game. I'm game for that because you know the things though that you were talking about is like this idea of, well, you're going to be cut off. Well, if it was really going to happen, you're going to be cut off from everything. Life wouldn't be the way it would be that you would expect. So here's the thing. If you look back, if you scale back to the shenanigans in 2020 and you look at that and all the horrible things they were saying, people are this is going to happen, this is going to collapse, and that's going to happen. None of it did.
That's
What
right.
was what was the purpose of it? If people can't start remembering, it's like, going right back to it. First time, shame on you for trying to trick me, but you're going to try and continually trick me. Shame on me. Because if I haven't caught on to your BS, then there's something wrong with where I'm sitting at. And one of the things, though, too, that you brought up earlier was the concept about freedom. I think people think that they have this, what do you call it? Predictive programming. So you're told that this is what life is, and this is what a good life is, and these are all of the elements that make up a good life. Well, I'm sorry that we don't fit into boxes. One of the things I think used to irritate people, well, I would tell them, it was like they're sitting there going, well, you think outside the box. And it's like, well, why would I want to play in somebody else's sandbox when I have the Sahara at my feet or the whole desert at my feet? I have a lot of options, and it's only the people that have lost that creative edge, and you do have it. Get the creative edge and get out your steel. And if you know anything about killing it, you're gonna sharpen that. And you're gonna be able to make those changes and cut through the BS that we're being fed right now. Cause it's it's just prolific.
It is. I'm sitting the other day, I'm watching the new explosions. It was like, wow, we talked about this yesterday. I did a reading, and it was like, I can see, I don't want to say, but I'm going to say it, and I said it, and then I get the information later on that confirmed it, and I was like, now that explains why I had that feeling state. So it's not just about the information that's coming in, it's how we filter it as well. You know, when I you have to listen to people. You have to listen to where they're at. You can listen to somebody who's like got a lot of information. They're right on the ball, dun dun dun, and you resonate with that. And so you follow that energy for a little bit. And then they might say that one word that just tings everything out of key. And then you go, oh, all right, you're not where I thought you were, and this is not going to do me any good because it was a pleasant distraction. Thank you. I'm going to move on. you know, and this is how I see the energy that is out there. And everybody does it. Everybody does it to everybody else because we are energy beings. We are looking for that connection. When we get enough of them coming together, we just light up. We just like zap, we just light up. And there's bugs out there that we seem to zap and they don't like it. So they come back in force to try to keep us, in our positions. But we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to keep coming back and repeating this process over and over again. Yeah, there are a lot of different challenges that we've got to take on because every time we've done this, they've been able to log our reactions. We were the experiment. We are the experiment. We're constantly being hybridized one way or another through the plant, through the air. We used to be giants once. Our oxygen levels were way, way higher. The everything was higher. The vitamin C was higher. Everything was more enriched because it was higher. And as everything was depleted, we became shorter. That's my theory. I'm sticking with
Well,
it.
you know what, though, there is scientific, okay, for those who like that religion, because science is a religion, I'm sorry. A religion just means that it's a belief system, it's a set of beliefs. And you can justify that how you want, whether it's through ancient scripture or in your lab, however you want to look at it. One of the things that they're able to measure, though, and I learned this probably over close to 25 years ago, is that they believe through experimenting with geological evidence and doing some of the tests on some of the things that they would find is that our atmosphere was much higher in hydrogen. Our atmosphere, actually, if you looked up into the sky, it was not this beautiful blue that we see, but it was a beautiful pink. So
Yeah.
it was a lot different. It may have been a pale lavender, whatever it was. It was different, and the atmospheric pressure was different. I also believe I had read many years ago that this dome, this thing that we call the firmament, was much larger. That ensues with the idea and theory that plants, animals, humans were much larger. I work in a very old building. They say it was built in like the 1960s, which I think it's probably, it's very Tartarian. So who knows how old that is? We'll just leave that right there. But I guess the thing is that when you look at these buildings, you can see where some of the things had definitely settled. Most people are in agreement with there's evidence of mud floods and that things had, the liquefaction took place, things sank, sometimes not quite so evenly. Hey, there's the Tower of Pisa.
Yeah.
It's not really shifting that much, but there's all these things that's evidence for us to take in, but we dismiss it based on this feeding that we get it's that predictive programming from when we looked, grew up or watched the movies or whatever it was. And I guess that the thing is that when you mentioned about all of a sudden that person says that one little thing, that's your filter distinguishing what is ringing true. And I think it's good to sit there and listen to people and you take it in, but you also have to have that mindset of not throwing everything out.
Yeah.
Because you're going to take in so much and it's valid, it's verifiable, it's something that makes sense with everything, not just one little window of time. It has to fit in the big puzzle. It can't just fit in with your little paradigm. It has to fit in with what we're looking at as a whole, from as far back as we can to where we're at now. And that will help us deal with what's coming. Because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff coming, but only if you don't have your game on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see the increase with the storms side of it, the weather warfares. I see an increase in the boom booms.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I see, I, you might hate me for saying this, but there's a lot of stage stuff going on right now.
100%.
There's, I've watched video footage being claimed as brand new when I saw that back at 2020. I remember that. One of my abilities, it's really annoying. I can't sit there and watch any movie because I'll find the human cut in that movie or the TV program where 1 minute they're there and their necklace is perfectly in place, and then the next frame it's over, or the shirt is covering the tattoo, and then next frame it's not, and then the next frame it is. It's like, wait, that's fucking with my head. And I have to literally stop and go back and check to make sure that I did see what I saw. And I always make sure I got a witness, and they're like, oh no, you didn't, not again, not again. So
I know,
yep.
I think I've just come up with a different term, and it's like, a lot of people are stupefied. But I think right now we have a greater population, unfortunately, that are dupeified. They're being fooled by all this stuff, and making reference to those changes. And I recall a few years ago seeing these crisis workers, actors, not workers, actors, these actors in multiple scenes where these were, published by major medias, something maybe like the AP or some of the other ones, where there was that person, supposedly in one part of the world, and then here they were, maybe a month or two later hanging out with their family, or even maybe having a back scenes, behind the scenes photograph and still in the same garb. And, of course they have, schmuck on their face. And sorry if that word offends you, but that's kind of what's been going on. And, people don't want to acknowledge that's a really that's
Yeah.
probably a bigger challenge for me. It's like, are you serious? You don't
Yeah.
see the difference even in who you're calling, who is your political hero? Are you kidding me? You don't see the difference? That's not the same individual. I'm not even going
Yeah.
to say human. I'm just going to say that's not the same individual. That's just not,
Well,
even, and
I
it's
say
all scripted.
I say that about the orange man, the orange character. I say one day he walked into a tent and what came out wasn't him. I
Yep.
say that the reason the man didn't go on to the storybook is because he'd already done it. And the other part of that is it wasn't him. It
So
wasn't him.
So here's the thing though too, because we accept in a general populace that this individual is being presented in public as this figure that has this name, they have this status, they have this is their life, this is their setup, and it can carry on for many years. If you think about it, I mean, there's some very long running sitcoms. Britain has some that are many decades along. So
Yeah.
why can't we have the same thing spinning out over decades? And paparazzi media is only going to be there when they need them to be there. They're going to be alerted when they need to be alerted to be there to capture something because it was intended. And this
Yeah.
all sounds very conspiracy, but let's face it. If you're that group that is orchestrating this and you're part of this production crew, you're going to go to the site, to the scene, and you're going to carry this out. It's got nothing to do with a conspiracy. It's got everything to do with an orchestrated and planned out set of information that they want to broadcast to
Yeah.
everyone. And unfortunately, it can have nefarious, but it can also have good aspects to it. So hopefully what we're trying to do is the good aspect. Wakey, wakey. You want to just poke somebody, just kind of
Well, it's yeah.
wake
And
up.
it's like, I was saying to you the other day, I know people that didn't go down the road of 2020 and got out of that situation, but on the next breath, they're still doing all the other stuff. They're still doing the vaping, they're still doing the energy drinks, they're still doing this, that, and everything else. It's like, it's not just, oh, we got some communication going on here. And it's not just in one product. It's
Correct.
it's in it's in everything, you
Correct.
know. I was having a conversation yesterday about what happened to the common cold. And back in the day, it was if someone could make a cure for the common cold, they would be wealthy. Well, they did it. They did it. They did it. They just renamed it.
You know what, though? This is the most interesting thing is they didn't, because they came up with something. And even those people, I have conversations with people all the time telling me that it's like, yeah, I did the hokey pokey and then I got sick. My family did the hokey pokey and they all got sick. So what was the point of that? And I'm sitting there looking at them thinking, really? You really don't want me to answer that. So why did you? What was the purpose of it? And again, if you didn't, it's still a means of other ways of getting the information that was input into you
Yeah,
through that hokey pokey. And that's all that's being looked after. It's not about necessarily even a control at this point. It's information gathering. Some of the fun stuff I've been seeing on Facebook, and I just kind of laugh. It's like we need to know more about this. I don't want to know who these people are, but I want to applaud them for those people. There was this whole thing of to not advocate violence. So what they're doing is, and it looks like it's overseas, I'm not gonna say what country, but it looks like it's overseas. And somebody's going on, of course, they're, garbed up in hoodies or whatever they're wearing when their faces are covered, and they don't really show it, but they have some fun music playing and they'll show these little camera things that they have at the crosswalks and intersections. Somebody's got a really good sawzall because these are metal posts that they're cutting down. I also
yeah,
saw something earlier today where someone had lit on fire one of those 5G towers, and it was just all the strands. And I think more and more people are realizing this is not about your phone connection, it's not about your
yeah,
internet connection, it's not about your Wi-Fi, it's everything to do with keeping an eye on and creating that network of less than helpful emanations that they're putting out on this. And those can be pinpointed to an individual and seek out what's going on in your biome and reducing you to something that is unalived because it's
Yeah.
already happened. Yeah, look up the guy's name who came up with a PCR test. That's all I'm going to say about that and what happened to him and what
Yeah.
he felt about that. But moving on, that's the level of deception. We know about these things. If you look at your street light, you can see like a little thing on top of it. That's not
Yeah.
that's not your a solar thing. That's a Wi-Fi thing. That's something to keep an eye on you. And they don't need a camera. They
Mm.
have the technology and the Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi is not on. I don't even need a Wi-Fi. Because all it does is it create a system where it reads your biome. It can tell you when you stand up through the walls, what you're walking around. What they really like you to do is submit to the point where they can see your heart rate, your pulse rate. Well, are you wearing one of those watches? Are you wearing an Apple Watch? I know, I got gems on my wrists.
Yeah, no, I can't.
That's how I mean, and it's all in the name of goodness and light and information and blah blah blah. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just really really tough. I did want to get off the dark shit and get back to something that you said is like we were talking about filters and the hydrogen, and it's all about connection. Maybe that does kind of tie into what we're talking about. But the whole thing about and I know I've mentioned this to you before, one of the sexiest things I've ever seen was somebody had an image of a synapse trying to find, and you could they actually filmed a new idea, and it was just like foo foo, and it was like reaching out, and it was desperately trying to find a connection
yeah.
to relate to grow, and that's what
Yeah.
we are. That's what each one of us is. We're reaching out to one another and trying to make those connections. We're not going to connect on because the little guy had all kinds of things. And I saw it when they did connect, it was like boom.
Yeah.
It was just the coolest, sexiest thing I ever saw was this little, microscopic synapse getting all happy because it connected with something, another
Yeah.
idea. And maybe that's what we are in the grand scope of things.
Well, we're
You know,
generating energy. We by doing that, we're generating energy. This is universal energy that we've got. For you to see that to me, when you get the two atoms come or the two neurons coming together, and boom, there's that connection. That's the God energy, right? That's the energy of creation right there. Boom. Right? Then there's new ideas, then there's new information. All it's doing, what I see it doing is when it illuminates, it gives you so much information. You can see further than you could before. And the more that it happens, the more that it goes on, it just gets lighter and lighter. The information just starts to flow because you've got all these synapses knowing that they can run again, dun 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 dun, and that's what happens. So there's so many areas in the body that have these synapses happening. It happens in the lungs, the kidneys, the heart, in all the organs in our body. Now, I just want to jump back on something that you said earlier when we were talking about the different fabrics on our skins, the sensibilities and stuff. What I got was, the synthetics have like needle type fibers. They're not a natural soft fiber. They're not organically recognized by our skin. Our skin is able to use the fibers it recognizes as another level of antenna. We can plug into that. We can get more information from that. Whereas the synthetics is like this between our scales. I mean, you might not want to hear me say that, but when you look at our skin, our epidermis levels underneath the microscope, you're going to find that we are actually scaly creatures. Oh, geez. And
You get
that's
old enough, you'll see
another,
it, trust me.
yeah, that's another topical by itself, you know.
Yay.
So when those needles get jammed in between our scales, it's going to irritate us, isn't it? It's going to irritate us. So, I had my own experience this week with nylon fabrics, synthetic fabrics. It's like, no, it's time to go back to more natural cotton. So on it went.
And there are more options and more people are talking about that. I mean, even hemp, people have kind of a stigma that again, predictive programming here. But hemp, cotton, linen, which is flax. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that's available to us, and people consider them to be weeds. I think we had a conversation in
Yeah.
one of the other chats about mullein, and I think Arizona was in on that. And it's like I have mullein in my kitchen, and I didn't plant it. It was like, oh, cool. I mean, these big leaves. And I just pulled off the few, and dried them out. And when I crushed them up, they're still sitting in the cupboard. So, you have to kind of figure out what's going to work for you because not everything is going to work for you. Someone was talking about, not in any of the things we talked about previously, but about wild lettuce.
Oh, yes, medicines. Yep.
Wild lettuce. And they said to be very careful with that because and this is interesting, because the natural products which are beneficial, and when they use something that's a prescription, this is where they've isolated a component that they want to amplify its ability to do whatever it is their goal is. So one of the things is for me is that when you isolate something, you're losing the full spectrum benefit, and you're gonna probably have a problem with however your body is going to synthesize that.
Yeah.
The other aspect to that is when you have something that your body doesn't recognize, one of the things that it tries to do if it can't eliminate it is it will encapsulate it in fat because it wants to check,
Yeah.
sure it protects you from other, from doing harm to the biome. So that's something to consider too, because I know a lot of people struggle, to maintain or lose weight because of the things that we're encountering, even in our foods. I don't eat a lot of processed stuff. I think you're probably in a little bit better position than I am in that respect, because you do a lot of your own stuff. I don't really feel like
Yeah, but I'm,
so I'm gonna go to the store and I'm gonna go buy a potato. Like today, I bought a potato. I put it in the air fryer. I don't have a microwave. I don't do microwaves. I haven't had a microwave in 30 years. So I put it in. Even the guy that created that magnetron that realized that it could cook the hot chocolate or the chocolate in his pocket. He says, "You people, you're freaking nuts for using that for your food." Anyway,
yeah.
so I put a potato in. That's what I had. I had a potato. I had half a potato, the big potato. So I had to have a potato, and that was more than enough. And I think you too. You had mentioned the other day. I don't think we were recording about, not overwhelming the
Yeah.
alimentary canal, not overwhelming our body to be able to process this stuff, and having that one meal a day. And I know you were on kind of that whole process right now. I don't know how far along you are with that.
No, I'm on to nuts at the moment. I did a fast just recently. I'm going to be doing another one shortly. And it's just a process. It's just like I just need to do it for 3 days. Anybody wants to kick in their stem cells and repair damages in their body, the more that you do this, the more that you practice, you allow your stomach that the gestation in your stomach, that break that it needs. It needs to heal. Nobody's giving it time to heal. We don't need these 3 meals a day. That's to me is gluttony. Okay, that is gluttony. We don't need those 3 meals a day. This is no, you know, no doctors and all any of that shit. This is me personally. Oh, interesting
This is what
timestamp.
you do for you. This is not medical or nutritional advice. Please seek your licensed practitioner.
Yeah. Um, no, it's about identifying and knowing what your body is capable of doing. I was told if you don't eat for 3 days, you're going to die. I was told you're going to go hungry if you just have 1 meal a day. None of that's bullshit. Excuse my French. But no, I didn't find that at all. I found that once I broke the 4 day barrier of it, there was no hunger, there was no headaches, there was no dizziness or any of this. I managed to balance and recognize my energy levels early on. So by doing that, I knew when my ebbs and flows were going to be and when I needed to have a break. But I had energy stored, a lot of energy stored. So when the body went into autophagy and started eating itself, I know that sounds horrible, but that's why we store the fats that we do in the first place. So my body's been through what's called the desert syndrome. It'll go for a long period of storage and nothing, and then boom, get something, and it'll go back straight into the storage system. So it's always got the stores there because it's lived through the times when it didn't have anything and it had to use everything. So now it's got, okay, we're going to store this. But that's not the only thing. I don't do all the fats, the dairies, and all this other shit. I don't even do the breads anymore. If I need a bread, I have to make it myself. You know, by eliminating potatoes, I I've eliminated everything else out of the food categories, all the different nightshade families, right down to the potato. I stopped the rheumatoid arthritis, the massive pains that basically debilitated me in my knees. I wasn't able to do very much. I had to work between the pain. When there's no pain, you forget what the pain is like. And then when the pain comes back, it's like, oh, damn, I've worked myself too hard. I shouldn't have done that. But then when I eliminated the source that was creating the inflammation, which was the potatoes, the nightshade family, the tomatoes, my addictions out of my diet, I can run around the yard. I can do the things that I thought I couldn't do anymore. And I started looking into, what are the foods that they give the elderly these days in hospitals? It's these debilitating food groups that keep them in these pain sectors and they can't move and they need this medication. It blew my mind. So allowing myself that knowledge that we don't need the amount of ingredients that we put into the system on a daily, triple time daily basis. We don't need that. When you start going, okay, well, this organ only needs this amount daily, you go, oh, geez, that's like a couple of nuts on my plate. You don't need that much to survive.
You
When,
know, yeah, but you know how freeing that is. If you think about that, how freeing is that? You're out of the kitchen, you're out of having to worry, and it's like shifting your mindset, really. And I guess the other side of it too is all of these things are good. It's just that I think they've been corrupted.
yeah,
I did a course about a year ago with Dr. Richard Ulrey, and he was talking about and even with my own doctor, where he is a holistic medical doctor, and his whole practice is around that integrative medicine. And he has one doctor saying that I can't do tomatoes, and this is how you get around it, and they have this other doctor comes in, he says, this is how I do. I mean, the guy looks amazing. He looks 20 years younger than what he is. And he says, because this other doctor basically said that all these things, and one thing that she really couldn't handle was tomatoes. So she's going to do a lot of research on the downsides of tomatoes. And it was kind of funny. So when he came in and did his little thing about this is what I do every Monday morning, and this is what I, have, that I can freeze or do whatever his process was. He says, well, first thing you do is you take some of the evil tomatoes. So for him, they weren't a problem, and he found them very helpful. And whether it's raw or it's slightly cooked, because I think that people think you have to cook the bejesus out of stuff, and you don't. You're basically killing it when you cook it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So try and eat things as whole as you can, based on whatever your body can handle. And the one thing Dr. Ulrich had mentioned was that he did not, he lives in a very small area here in Michigan. And one of the local ladies had a really nice bakery. She's like, how come you never buy my bread? And he goes, because it's bromated flour. And she goes,
Yeah.
wow. And so he took her in, he's like, yep, so I'm not going to eat it unless you have unbromated. And he kind of laid out what he felt that she needed to have was that, okay, I'll buy your bread if you do it this way, because that's going to be healthy. And I used to do my own the same way. I used to buy the wheat and put it in my freezer. And then I would take several cups out, let it thaw for a hot second. I would grind it,
Yeah.
and then I would make my starter or feed my starter from that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't buy commercial yeast or commercial breads. And you know what? It had a longer shelf life.
Yeah.
It didn't go off. I think it
Yeah.
kept for about 2 weeks. And you didn't wrap it in plastic. You wrapped it in plastic, it went off.
Yeah.
You wrapped it in paper, in a good paper, even it was a nice brown paper bag. And then you could throw some plastic over that, but you had to make sure the paper was sealed off. It was
Yeah.
with this is just what I did. This is not medical advice again, but it worked for us, growing with a growing family and whatnot. But that was the whole idea, is that everything's been so corrupted, and our bodies have, again, how have we grown, in our bodies, but we've shrunk in our ability to deal with the environment. So we have people more sensitive to pollens. Love
Yeah.
pollen. My mother used to eat bee pollen. She'd buy these big bags and put it in the freezer. And you'd be walking in the kitchen. There's Ma in the freezer with a spoon stuck in the bag and eating a spoonful of bee pollen. And that was her energy. That was her food. So again, I think our whole mindset needs to shift a little bit. Not everything's going to work for everybody,
Yeah.
and where you're getting your foods. I think something that we talked about or just basically touched on was making sure that you buy as local as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I want to throw in there is when you're looking at your foods and stuff, I looked at the list of places I trained, how I was trained, and the jobs that I've had because of that training. And through the horticultural side of it, horticultural side, oh my God, um, tomatoes were the first thing that I watched being cloned. All right, they were being genetically modified. When they say that doesn't happen here in New Zealand, if you're going to believe that, then you're thicker than I think. Okay, get over it. They do it. They do it every day. They do it in every country. All right. If you think that they don't, come on, you got to wake up. This is the problem. You're believing in the wrong people, telling you over and over again, this is how it is. This is how it is, when it's been fabricated the whole time. All right. So I look at the food, I look at the shape, I look at, oh, okay, do two or three of them all look the same size, the same color? What's the texture of the skin? That's not how I remember a decent tomato feeling. All right. Okay, now can you pick it up and smell it? Can you actually smell the smell from the tomato or the lateral that, it attaches to, the little leaf at the end of it? Can you smell that? Because if you can't smell it, it needs to stay on the shelf
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know what you're putting in your system.
Mm-hmm.
People need to wake up to how the foods have changed because it starts with the food, it starts with the water, it starts with the air, it starts with who's coming into your surroundings, how you're preparing your foods. We've got a time right now where we can still use the internet as our researcher. We can go out there, we can get the information, we get the books that we need. We need to upgrade our skills constantly. We can't be left behind on this one. We can see that them behind us, and that sounds, derogatory in itself. They just learn different things than we did. It doesn't mean that they're behind us or in front of us. We're just all learning at different rates. But when you see someone you think is not learning as fast as you, they'll surprise you. They'll pull something out of their hat and they will blow you away. And then you'll be like, oh, geez, now I've got to second guess all the material. I'm getting that sensation that it did this before, that um yeah. So yeah, okay. I just threw this away. But I wanted to jump back to your wild lettuce as well. In some areas you need to be careful of it because it is a sedative. All right. It is a pain relief. It is a sedative. It's like there's a lot of things that it's used for. So with everything that you get that you go, oh, this can be used for this, please do your research. Because if you don't want to overdose on a leaf that you know bugger all about, you've just heard it here and there. Please do your research. That means being able to make sure you've clearly identified the plant in the first place. Second, make sure you have prepared it. So any of the toxicities, like I don't even want to mention them on here, but there are different areas that you need to boil your produce for 20 minutes here, give it a rinse, and then boil it another 20 minutes before you can safely put it in your food and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
In old days, it used to be known as poor man's bread. You'll be able to find it. So you've got to be careful with the plants because they can have an adverse reaction if you haven't prepped it right. So, do take that into consideration, the weather elements, the way that you prep it, it is going to have an effect. What has affected the plant or the produce is then going to affect you. So what energy you put into it has to be of clear intent and knowing. It's like when you're going to grow a medicine plant for yourself, and it can be any variety, put the seed on your tongue. It knows the information from your saliva. Then it'll grow you the medicine as soon as it's planted, it puts out those feelers. This is what I need to find. This is what I need to find. And it will find it and it will bring it in and it'll give you because you've given it a purpose. You've set that around it. You've set that in motion. It takes that information in. Now it's because it's a filter device, just as we are. So be careful with your plants. I can go down some massive rabbit holes with plants and I love them. When it comes to the weight loss part of it, it's you were saying about somebody you were talking about they can't handle eating tomatoes a certain way. I was the same with garlic. I don't like raw garlic. Oh no, you're a vampire. Stay away. Lactose, being lactose intolerant doesn't just necessarily mean it's dairy product lactose. So I discovered. So I got the image of blue garlic. I was given the instructions of blue garlic. So I put some garlic in some water. It turned blue. I had a piece. And what do you know? I didn't have any of the side effects that I would normally have gotten had I eaten it raw. And then I started doing this with all my garlic, and I started noticing that there was the milk, the lactic acid milk would fall to the bottom, and it would be a film right across the bottom. So I was now harvesting lactic acid, pure form, garlic even.
Yep.
So, and I could take that in a different form. I couldn't take it through that plant. Okay, I couldn't ingest it through that plant, but in a different form, I could. So by removing it from that plant, it's like when you want the best benefits from turmeric, you also add your black pepper to it, okay, for the best results. But some people can't do pepper, and some people can't do turmeric, and then some people can do both of them together. So, it's just like you've got to try these things, but you be careful and you don't overdo it. Do not overdo it. Because then you might have a false reaction. So it might be a once off thing that might say you can't do this because you overdosed on it. And I was like that with seafood in the early days. I had a huge, I was force-fed seafood, every kind, pippies, shells, mussels, you name it, crayfish, crabs, all in one go. And I had an adverse reaction to it. I ended up with anaphylaxia. And then I went out and had one or two pippies and boom, reacted again. So that showed me I couldn't go back there to that. To this day, I'm giving away a personal secret. I can't. I won't go down that. I went to a woman's house one day and we were having a small, it was like a little mini quiche that we bought from the general supermarket. And while I was eating it, I started noticing the tingling on my tongue and in my mouth. And then it started getting stronger and stronger. I started having a dizzy. I put the food down. I'd only had maybe one mouthful of that. And I started getting a bit dizzy and I says, "Oh, I feel like I've been drugged here." And she looked over at me. I managed to get out of a situation that could have turned really, really ugly. Later on, I went back to that supermarket and I discovered that they used fish oil inside the mix. And so I had that actually gave me, as an adult, through that whole episode, I got to see that I had a reaction to omega-3 oil. So I went from the fish type, because that was causing that reaction, to the increasing my plant-based omega-3 oils, which also increased different areas, opened up different areas. The other area where that coincided with was when we go into this weight loss process and we're going through the autophagy, it's not just the what happened back then that stored that weight. It's what was also inside you at that time, all the chemicals, all the memory, all the imprints. And if it was an ugly time, it's going to come out. It's going to come out as, oh, you're going to have an emotional flood. Oh, you're going to be, anything could happen. You might end up in a fetal position on your bed with a water bottle, not knowing why you're in so much pain. But it's not here. It's not real. It's it's symptomatic sensations of the experience that you went through. It's like a ghost looping, an energy that's still looping the same cycle, but these spirits don't interact, but they still do the same loop. That was the sensation. Um, okay, that jumped me to another one. You got, I also call it shadow work. So when you see these, when you recognize the sensations after eating or after interacting with other people, when you recognize these sensations, that's when you can go, okay, I'm not going to run away from that. I'm going to face it. I'm going to work out where it came from, why I'm triggered, why I'm reacting like I am, because I no longer need that to have this physical effect or mental effect that just puts me into another stuck state. when we were talking earlier, we were talking about hurt and PTSD. For me, I'm not going to say I cured anything. I'm not going to say I healed anything. I can only say that I built the tools I needed to manage what came in from us. When I was diagnosed as CPTSD, I looked into what is that? This is when I was doing psychology. What is that? How does that come about? And so I was my own subject from everything that I'd gone through. I was able to go through the academia side of it and go, well, that doesn't actually fit. That doesn't fit with the experience. And I had to try to backtrack and figure out how they came about their, analysis of it. They were male, I was female. Um, they were old men, long story short, writing these books that people were just following stuck states. Yeah, absolutely insane. The programming was absolutely phenomenal. And once again, okay, back onto it. So the hurt came down to knowing that someone was out there set up deliberately to hurt me. That was where the hurt sensation came back into the PTSD. When I was able to make that connection and then go to my inner child and have these communications with them, I was able to release that much more. I was able to see the anger, the pain, the trauma, the distress, and why they did it. Why they did it. And it's like I don't need to be attached to that cord. You were talking about etheric cords earlier on. Do you want to jump in?
Well, yeah, I mean, and one of the things though too is I think everybody has them and how you view them is going to be unique to you. So, whether you view that as a self-blame or figuring out that, okay, I have this symptom or feeling because of this event in my life. The thing is that however you resolve that and make sense of that, what you're experiencing, that is the beginning point of resolving it. As far as cutting a cord, there was something where someone would quite frequently say, I cut that cord and I was healed from it, and then all of a sudden they now have something else that was this trigger, and now they're experiencing these same negative effects. And for me, I kind of looked at it as a situation where you maybe you cut the cord, but you didn't release the root. You have severed yourself from the tree. You still have the root, and the root needs to be untied. So if you wanted to make it into a tidy, visual in your mind, you would see that as a cord wrapped around you somehow, and you have to untie the knot and let it go. And, you can make it complicated. You can make it simple. It's really up to you. Seriously, it's however you're going to legitimize it. It doesn't have to be complicated because the experience isn't a relevant aspect. It's the healing that's the relevant aspect. If you view it as a very simple knot, you can go, I see ya.
Yeah.
And when if you have on a tight piece of clothing and you take that clothing off, imagine what that feels like. It's very freeing, but let's face it, you still feel that clothing on your skin. So it's
Yeah.
going to take some time to, reduce that intensity and get back to a little bit healthier, maybe homeostasis, I guess, the way I can kind of legitimize that. But yeah, that's all I have on that.
Well, when you're talking about that, I'm going to jump back into the spiritual cords. when we're out there and we're doing readings and work and energy work on people, we have to be aware to not take anything, bring anything back with us, have any attachments ourselves. And I myself, I get them occasionally, and I hear other people getting them, and I can see it when other healers are out there doing the work, and they come back with something. Their personalities are slightly different, or their speech is a bit different, or you can see the energy that's been drained from them, and different ways like this. And point it out if you see it, because we're all prone to it. I have many, many ways of putting up force fields and protecting myself, but as fast as we can adapt ourselves, they can too. Whatever you think that they can do and are capable of, we are too. So, and it is vice versa. They know when we know. This is just, I was having this conversation sitting there and it's like there's been times when the contact that I've had out there, the conversation was around, are they human out there, flashing when they go fly over and when they're trying to communicate. But when I'm out there and I can ask a question and I feel like they've got it and they send their answer straight back and I'm not even finished verbally announcing my question, it's like they're not human. If they're human, I want to know what species they are because, they know when I know, and I know when they're nearby. So there is a connection, lifetime connection between the whatevers, whoever they are, because I don't give a shit. Excuse my French. It's like they've never done me any wrong or any harm. At the end of the day, they've appeared, they've startled me, they've left their impressions on me. Yeah, in the early days, I saw them do this and that, and I don't know why they did it, but in saying that, so has humanity. So has those that said they were there for my best interests. Medical industries, psychological industries, schools, all these different industries have taken their toll. And it was like, no, no, I'm not going to allow myself to be attached to all of this baggage anymore. And this is just going to bring me straight back to where we're at right now. With everything that's going on right now, people are going to be frazzled. Their energies are going to be drained. If the planet is getting attacked and bombarded the way that we're being led to believe is actually happening, then we're going to feel the ripple effects right around. And I'm not just talking about, okay, there's nothing on the shelves here or there or anywhere else. It's going to be an energy, it's going to be a mood swing, it's going to be, I pretty much see a purge happening. I see a few takeovers happening, the threat of takeovers happening, I should say. Back in the day, as a teenager, my grandfather turned around and said to me, you need to learn Mandarin, like pygmy Asian, Mandarin or German, and watch out for the blue caps, the blue hats. And that was it. He was a minister of parliament at one stage, and he worked with immigration. There was all these political parties and stuff that went on at his house and everything. So there was a lot of dark rituals and shit. So, I'm reminded now with what's going on, maybe I should have learnt Mandarin. I've got some in the fridge. Oh, these etheric chords, when you know you're clear of the work that you've been doing spiritually, you make sure you clear all the cords. It doesn't matter how little it is, because I personally can take on physical ailments of those that I do work with. And just one lapse in judgment, one little forget here or there. And then I'm like, oh, geez, why is that happening to me? Why is that happening to me? And then it'll just pull me back straight to the culprit. So be aware of where your energy goes, where your energy flows, because there'll be others out there trying to hijack this energy. The other one I wanted to bring up too is, did you see the recent crop circle that looks like a jester's face? I haven't looked into it too much, but there's one out there, and I'm just like, that's the if you think about the technology that is actually out there that they've been able to tap back into, they could have been doing these crop circles forever.
100%.
I mean,
100%. And
is
I
there?
know that there are some of those crop circles that they've talked about that people have gone into and just sat, who've been ill and have benefited from the just sitting in there. So whatever, some of them are, well, I kind of was into that for maybe about 6, 8 months, and it seemed like that most of them were pretty much BS. And then they had some people trying to refute, saying that they were, we did them, and it was kind of like, nah, you didn't, because you're not up to par to the precision that and complexity of what was, presenting in these different crop circles. But I guess leading back to what you're talking about, though, as far as that frequency that those people could sit in those crop circles, and maybe that's part of why it's being brought up into the awareness now. And as I was writing the word awareness, you said that we are being made aware. So one of the things that when we are made aware of something, and it kind of makes things feel an expansive release or relief, is when we embody gratitude. And
Mm,
when we reach that awareness that we can just kind of embody that awareness, that thanks for making aware of, hey, I don't feel good. Help me become more aware. Thanks for making me aware. And even when you were talking about these attachments, and I come from more of a clinical background. Hang on a second. Sorry, I'm not going to multitask when I got this in my head. I have photo evidence. I helped somebody a couple 3 years ago. It was rough.
yeah.
And I really put myself out. It was my day off, and I wasn't, because I work in mental health. I was like, okay, I can't say no to this, because if I kind of put myself in other people's shoes, I have to go help this person. If this is who they are and they need help, I would want to help them. So I helped them, and everything was great. And I kind of got, verbally, chastised by a friend of mine saying, "What are you, nuts? You didn't know this person. You traveled 5+ hours away from home one way." And I said, if I was in that position, I would want somebody to, I would be grateful for somebody to help me. The upshot, though, is I had gone to an event, because I take pictures out at night, and I was getting some pretty impressive light beings showing up. I went to an event about 45 minutes from here, and I talked to a man who used to be he was an exorcist for the Catholic Church. He got out of that. I mean, long story short, you want to look him up. He's known as Dr. Douglas Gabriel. He's a pretty cool guy. But I showed him pictures. I said, "You know what these light beings are?" I call them light sticks. I don't know what they are. He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "These are awesome." And when I showed him the one picture that I took about a day and a half later, after I had picked that person up and helped out, he goes, "I don't like that. I don't like
Mm,
that." And to this day, that person is doing extremely well. So keep this in mind, those little things that we do when we put ourselves in peril. It's not only just to really raise our awareness, but it's also to facilitate someone else's healing. And if we're going to facilitate someone else's healing, we're going to facilitate our own. So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that yeah, it was kind of a weird looking thing. It was like, it had like fingers on it. I told him, I said, I never felt threatened. I never felt ill or anything like that. And he's looking at me, he's like, it doesn't look so good, you know. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I haven't seen it. I just saw it that one. So maybe with however my mindset was that continues to be, I'm hoping, is that we're gonna go ahead and, you know, it's gonna be okay. I don't think we're gonna be presented with more than what we're gonna be able to handle. It's up to us to realize that.
Oh,
We
look,
have to realize that we
yeah,
have this and we are forgetting and being, it's very close to a word like disemboweled, but it's disempowered. And if you put those two together, that's where your gut is. We're losing our ability to I don't want to say manifest, but really connect with, because I think we had the whole conversation about, it's not tapping into. We got a freaking roto rooter ourselves way back, back into those connections of ourselves. It's not outside of us. The universe is not outside of us.
no,
Everything that we need is here now. You can think
yeah,
about the past. That's just a memory. You can think about the future and plan for it. But if you put all of these things together in the now, that's where the real power resides within us. You know what I mean? I mean that's just kind of like don't be blaming things outside of yourself. We have
no.
control of this. We got this.
I mean, we're capable of so much. Yeah,
Oh,
my thing was, okay, I can live as a victim. I can, do all of that side of it, but that's not going to do me any favors. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live under somebody else's limited stuck states. I was the programming that goes on out there, the mass programming that goes on out there. Today I popped into another YouTube and I was having a listen and it was like, we talked about this. It's not about the skin you're in, the skin is our onesie. We needed a onesie, boom, here we are, we're in one. It's there's so many different aspects to this vessel. We're multidimensional beings. We're able to tap into all the information around us coming in. Our skin is an organic filter. It's bringing in messages, but it's also emitting messages out. Where there's the as a multidimensional, the levels are we don't need to speak. We don't with the body language is enough. I'm wanting to go back to a time when we didn't need all the fancy clothing and this and that because there was only really one fabric, and that was organic. It came from organic resources. So we didn't need to do all of this major work over looking fancy and stuff as long as we covered ourselves up and felt good about ourselves. You know, transport was looked at totally different. You still managed to get around. You still managed to get from A to B and do all of that. Communication was telepathy. Healing was in singing, frequency, music, dance, swimming in the water, bathing. These are not fancies. These are not just fancies. These are realities. We have the smallest part of those realities now because we've limited ourselves to living indoors, these boxes designed to just harness energy. A cell doesn't have to be that size by that size. A cell can house several different batteries at one time. You know, cell within a cell within a cell. Oh, well, that sounds like the human construct.
yeah. It was kind of funny they were talking about being outside or in the environment. And I think best things that happened to me today was going out and you said, "Oh, be careful. It's extremely hot." It was a what is it? It's like it's late in the evening, and earlier today it was about it's 88 degrees right now, and it's almost midnight. So 88 degrees at midnight, yeah, that's kind of on the warm side, but one of the things when I was out there when I think it was like 32 Celsius, and I'm out cutting the grass, and I'm thinking this feels really good.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
really good because one of the most purging and wonderful things, as long as you're going to stay hydrated, one of the most wonderful things is to get out there, move your body, and sweat.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things too that can happen is when you're doing that, uh, you don't smell bad. If
No.
you've eaten properly, you don't have anything, on your body that can be a little on the toxic side. I think I had that conversation the other day about when I was in New Zealand and some guy kind of gave me a hard time in the market because I was asking a clerk. I was like, I want to find an underarm that doesn't have aluminum in it. And the old guy goes, aluminum. And it was kind of funny because I thought, okay, okay. And she got a little embarrassed. But I mean, that's one of the things that I found that when you use things on your body that is toxic, and
Yeah.
you can use other things that it doesn't have to be something from the store.
Yeah.
I know for years ago, there was salt. And all the smell is bacteria between the bacteria that is in that enclosed space, but it's also purging whatever toxins you have
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah. The
And
gas.
that, you know, if you're eating good, you got halfway decent water, you don't need it. I mean, I can go days without using anything.
You
Just
know,
eat well.
I can just have sauerkraut and it'll make me quite gassy, but it won't be stinky gassy because it's fermented cabbage. It's not raw cabbage.
Right.
Um, Over the years of going from dairy, meat, bread to plants now, it's like I know when something is off within my system if my gas is stinky. I'll
Yep.
be like, oh, okay, so I must have had too much of this, or this is a reaction. It's a body saying, oh, these are the gases that your stomach has just chopped through, and this is the nitrates that you guys are putting out.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm the gas and the same as I mean, we can go into some messy places here, but we could try to do it. Your waste products reflect what your system is able to handle and is doing at the time. I worked in this field, okay? Little scoop in a big bucket of we don't need to say it. We don't need to fill in
Yep.
those gaps.
Yep.
And it's like, why are we as humans, we go on about the abuse that we suffer from those out there around us, but we don't take consideration for the abuse that we do to ourselves because the ads tell us, oh, that's really nice. Go and get that hamburger. Oh, look at that fat dripping from that burger. Tasted really good back in the day. But now when I see that, I see, okay, I don't need to do that. And I'm grateful that I don't need to go down that. I've found alternatives for that source. Now, I'm not anorexic. I'm not skinny by any means, but I'm not super unhealthy. I'm running around. I'm active, as much as I can be. I got my war wounds, but it doesn't stop me. It doesn't retard my body from doing stuff anymore. When food was the problem, food caused so much, um, what is it, inflammation. But why did the food have to be put there? because psychological warfare that was going on inside my head and against my body. So my head brain and my gut brain were constantly at war. And then you take into consideration, well, if my body is an organ, then everything I'm wearing is also having conflict, and then I'm picking up plastic pens, I'm picking up a metal fork every day to eat a lettuce leaf. Wait a minute, what's wrong with that picture? My stomach brain is telling my head brain that I'm about to eat a fork, not the
Mhm,
stuff on it,
mhm.
because my senses has just said metal, metal, metal.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, this made me think of back many years ago when I was really into the basics and thinking about, we were talking about when I was homeschooling the kids, and we were talking about the injera bread and how do we make the injera bread. So we made injera bread, and we kind of talked about the different cultures and their eating and how they presented their food, and it was a family community, if you will, where everybody sat around. There was maybe a place where you could put something if you wanted, or if you wanted, you could take a piece of the injera bread and you would pull off a piece and you would dip it in this, or you would wrap it around something else. There was none of this phobia and germophobia really about, you double dipped. And I was like, there
Yeah,
was none of that, and I think that's also a predictive programming thing. But the injera bread is not something that I can't remember the name of the grain that's used, but it's very dark. It's a
uh,
very dark brown, and it's very soft. And but when you made it in like this soft flat bread, there was no leavening in it, and it was just beautiful. And you would just scoop up what you wanted or put on it what you wanted, wrap it up and eat it. There was no flatware, there was nothing. You might have had something on the table covering to protect the table, where you would eat your food. And it was a family gathering, it was a community thing.
yeah,
And that in and of itself sets up that gut biome. You talked about the gut brain. That's ultimately your vagus nerve emits
yeah,
that gut brain that works with your heart, that also has its own neural network that's very similar to the brain. So all of this comes into alignment, and when you have that, psychological aspect with your family, you're getting good nutrition, and it's consumed in a healthy way. You got all the components, unless you got some jackwagon you have a problem with in the family, then your heart might be a little out of alignment. I don't know, but you get the point, though. You have to kind of do the little juggling act. I read a book that was on Goodreads about the gut brain. It was written back in 1906. It's out of print, been out of print for God knows how long, but he was a psychologist and realized that you actually have your intuition. That's the energetic field around your gut. You have that gut feeling. That was the vagus nerve. That's like the major nerve that when it gets into your torso, it branches off. Do some research, y'all. It's really basic stuff, but it has this other aspect to it that he was studying that said that, if you're not in a good headspace, you're not in a good heart space, you feel something's off in your life, that's the trinity for you that you need to bring things back in, and it'll be helpful. You're going to find that you're going to be able to either digest or not digest something. How
yeah,
many times have you had something that you've always been able to eat, but because you had something going on in your life, or you don't like who you're having to sit down and eat with, or something just happened, or you're having to deal with something in the near future that's really unpleasant, and you're like, I can't do this. I can't eat that.
yeah,
Keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with that, because your body, when you're in trauma or stress and you lose your appetite, don't let people force you to eat.
yeah,
That's bad. I lost a ton of weight back in 2014 when I had a major life-changing event happen. And I probably lost like 40 or 50 pounds. And people were looking at me like, please don't lose any more weight. We're going to have to put you in the hospital. And,
Yeah.
and, and that's valid. That's valid. But my body was saying, no, we got other shit to deal with. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to apologize for my French because it isn't French. It's shit. It's not merde. It's shit. You got stuff that comes into your life that's tough for you to deal with. Listen to your body, listen to your heart, seek help if you need it.
Yeah.
And things will come right. And I posted in here is that I'm not a survivor, I'm not a victim. The I am, and that's me, that's each one of us, I am. We are an overcomer. I have overcome, and I will continue to do so.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just saying hi to the people in the thing. That's meant to have an emoji with it. Mark what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, everybody in the room and out there in Spaceland. You know,
And
yeah,
those who watch afterwards, because this was very impromptu for us. We felt very spurred on to do this because some of the political shit is a bunch of shit, and it is a bunch of shenanigans. It's a bunch of lies, just like we've been fed, force fed. And if you eat that shit, guess what? It's gonna stink coming out the other end, baby. You just put that out there, right? So
well, it
let's
is. Yes. I mean, I think you can, yeah, when you know where the smell is coming from. I mean, oh, geez, you eat meat, it's bad. You eat cheese, it's even worse. When you
and if
mix the,
but but if
yeah,
you're eating, if you are consuming the media, it is the meat. And
yeah,
it's the soured meat. It's the off stuff. I make my dog's food and I cut open a red pepper. I bought it yesterday, just a bell pepper. I cut it open and I looked inside and it was starting to go off. It's like I just bought this yesterday, but if you hold that up and you look at it, there's nothing wrong with it. So we have to be very much aware of what we're consuming through our
well,
senses.
that's the other thing too. That's the other thing too. I mean, when are we meant to be consuming a product? When is that actual fruit or vegetable or meat actually ripe for us to actually eat? I'm bad. I like sour oranges. That means that they're picked because I like them. They're picked before they're ready, and then they're shipped out. And I'm a consumer, so I'm one of the problems that is causing these oranges to be picked sooner than they're ready. But if we go back to the tree and proper reality, that orange would fall from the tree without me touching it, and it would roll away from the tree when it was ready to be consumed. All right, and that's the best time. So the skin is designed for a certain way, and these fruit flies, they will appear out of nowhere. The fruit fly that the government calls a fruit fly is not what I grew up with. The fruit fly that I grew up with is like the size of a gnat, and that's how you know you're going to get a good vinegar when you put your scraps down, or a good yeast when you put your apple scraps down, as you get these little gnats that appear out of nowhere, the fruit fly, and they have their dirty feet. They do their little dirty feet dance, and they make the yeast and they make the bacteria that we use to make the bread rise. Now, when you were talking about the bread rising, I was smiling to myself because I did this event one day and I was doing it as authentic as possible. Living history historian. Um, so I went out and got all the grains and all the everything in raw material, as raw as it could be, and I ground it down in my mortar and pestle. It was actually my quern at the time, big stone with a big stone wheel that anyway, proper quern. And then I ground that flour down. So what I was doing was what people call grits. You can boil it up and throw in your old shoes and have a stew later on, gumboot stew. Well, grits was ground down into a flour to make flatbread or biscuits. They called them biscuits, but they were just like these little rock hard substances. And what you'd do is you break off a little piece of this biscuit and you would dip it into the liquid to give the bread or the biscuit, it would swell up with the juice, rehydrate, and it would be sustenance to fill you up. You know, I made some. They're out in the kitchen. They're still in a bag a year later because they are so rock hard dense that you need a hammer and a chisel to break one in half. And then you just throw a little piece into your stew. And when it expands, it doesn't just thicken the stew, the broth, it also fills it up with flavor so you can pull it out and eat it and stick it under the grill and do what you need to do. It's yum.
Yep.
Anyway, I found lots of ways.
One of the things that my dad used to say, uh, he, he grew up during the Depression, and he would say, what did you guys? I would say, what did you guys eat when you were kids? There was this depression going on. He says, oh, we would have popcorn for breakfast. Really? Yeah. Popcorn
Yeah.
for yeah, we would have popcorn for breakfast. We would have water for lunch, and then we would swell for dinner.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
as long as you felt full, I think, he never really came out and said it, but as long as you felt full and you were happy, the rest of this stuff and again, this is not really a predictive programming, but it's a cultural expectation that, you had to have the opulent dinner and the nice lunch and, a healthy breakfast, healthy, and he worked in contracting. So he would get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, make his own breakfast, and then he'd be out the door,
Yeah.
before the sun came up. So, that was how his culture and the culture of the day, as it were, presented of what was acceptable to do, and we all kind of fall in line. I think we're at a stage, hopefully today, is that wherever you're at in your life, whatever is going to suit you, that's going to be the most healthy and best thing for you to do, that's probably going to be your best option. And don't expect that to stay the same, because I can't say that I eat the same now as what I did even a month ago or 6 months ago or 10 years ago. Definitely not. But the point is we make these adjustments through our life. I don't have any problem with eating anything, touch wood. I don't take it. I don't have any medications or anything like that. And I think Stone, you're in the same kind of book. You have, because of your body, because of your biome and your body chemistry, you do have to watch what you take in. I'm not
Oh, yeah.
saying the only thing that I have to watch out for is any kind of refined sugar.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of said, all right, if I can't have refined sugar, and I know what's in some of these fast food and boxed products, I don't buy any of it. Like I said, I haven't had a microwave in X
Yeah.
number of decades. So really, acclimating and cleaning up your diet, it doesn't happen to happen overnight. You just give up one thing that that's not good for you, not medical advice, not health advice, but it's something that Stone and I think we kind of discover it through whatever you got going on in your life that you feel like you need to make an adjustment. The other thing too is that if you can't figure out, or you want to figure out what's helpful to you, is find a practitioner who knows how to do muscle testing. You don't have to
Yeah.
consume anything. It's no blood work. It's no, hokey pokey or, under the skin stuff. Uh, it's something that's really important for you to do. If you have a good practitioner, they can do a really good muscle testing, and they'll be able to tell right away as soon as you take that container in your hand that has whatever it is that you need or that you don't need, they can figure it out, and you can move forward from there. It's an exploration type of thing. It's a figuring it out.
Yeah.
Our biome is very complex.
there's I'm sure that you can find some stuff on the internet or that'll teach you about muscle testing. So you can get an idea what it is. It's
Mhm.
basically if you can answer yes or no. So if I ask myself a question, I'm not going to tell you the question. I'll ask myself a question. Is my name is my name Cinderella? And I can't pull it open. My fingers don't want to come open. Okay. Um, I'll say it quietly what my real name is. Is my name that was like there's no pull there, there's no it doesn't want to stay fastened, it doesn't want to stay fastened. There's like, because we have meridian lines and energy points around our body, you can be tapping at acupressure points, you can press them. I mean, when you get headaches and stuff, what do? You first you grab your head, you hold on to your head. Well, you just above your temples, you can massage your temples slightly. If that headache persists, there's these pressure acupressure points in here around your thumb. You just give them a massage. When you feel yourself doing it the correct way, you'll feel these tingles all through different aspects. It's like you're unblocking. When you're getting a headache, why are you getting a headache? Is it a blockage in the meridian flow, energy flow? Is it a food reaction, a chemical that's gone off in the body saying, watch out, we got this chemical coming in. These are the reactions the body's going to have. You know, when you start listening to yourself, your body self, not your inner self, but your body self, you'll hear the inner voice telling you what's wrong with you. I mean, I'm finding myself lately having really good conversations with my inner self. I'll go to do something and it'll tell me, oh, while you're here, do this too. Get two jobs in one go. And I'm like, oh yeah, cheers for that. Thanks. And I'm actually saying thank you for the information wherever it's coming from. Because if the minute it starts to do me harm or ill will, I will say, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is not in my best interest. Like earlier on, we were having a discussion. I can't even remember what it was, but back in the day, an event took place, and I didn't know why it took place, but I remembered it, and it wasn't a bad thing. And then in the future, I look back and I go, that's why that happened. I didn't know why it happened the way that it did then, but then stepping into the now, going, now I can see why I went through that part of that experiment, so that when it stands in front of me next, I can recognize it, and if it's not in solid form or it's in somebody else psychologically, I'll be able to recognize the form. And that's what I do. I recognize the imprints, the I see it as frequency signatures. When we have, or we have a frequency signature for the heart, the lung, all the organs, the physical, the different dimensions. And once we recognize those, and to get them tuned in, it doesn't take very much. We go, okay, well, that's out of alignment. We tune that in. When that falls into harmonics, it's going to fall into harmonics with the next organ and the next organ, because they all work together. They all produce one element or another that feeds the other element or another. So when they're all in harmony with each other, the whole resonance, the whole frequency signature changes. It's still the same, but it's just enhanced. It's now in rhythm with itself. You can still hear it, it's just louder and it's more precise. The more work we do on clear intentions, the louder it becomes, the stronger our energies become, because we are aware of what we're bringing in, what we're putting out, what our surroundings are. It gets a bit bumpy here and there and stuff, but if for me it was the adventure of it all. what persona was I going to take on for today's one? And in a next feed that we do, we should bring up about the different avatars and personalities that we develop for survival reasons, and then how to call back in the energies and information that that personality avatar or splintered self has gained. When we draw that back into ourselves, allow all our splintered versions of ourselves to come back in, because we know we're strong enough to be able to help these versions with where they got stuck, so they can be released. We can step back into our wholeness. And that is where I'm working from. I'm working from stepping back into the fullness of who we are, all of the aspects being revealed to us, all information being at our fingertips again, you know, stepping back into the remembrance of it all. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like it's like a reintegration of everything, and it's not just even within ourselves. And that's a big part of what I think we're kind of going through when you're talking about something that's splintered. It's, and if you look at a splinter, you think it might be disconnected, but it's really not. It's something that's still attached. It's just kind of not lost some aspect of your awareness. But once you bring that in, and for all of us, this is the process of expansion. When you bring something in, you have to kind of, if you think about, if you have a balloon and you put water in it, and this is ultimately what it is, you're going to put water in, and that's information. You're putting more water in, that balloon's going to expand. And that's kind of what it feels like. I mean, that's not really, but it is a good analogy, because it's not something that can be in a container. That's the only, you know, thing that kind
yeah,
of is juxtaposed to that analogy, is that it's not something that can be contained, and it's not something that can be separated. The balloon can be separated. We really can't. And this separation definitely is an illusion. It's something that I think that more and more people are definitely getting, you know, clued in to. Yeah, it's an issue when we're pushed back and to this idea that we are separate, because we're not. We're
yeah.
definitely not.
Well,
But
that's where we've got to go. We've got to break down the words, like what is an illusion? Well, in the early days, I was brought up to believe an illusion was like a mirage, and it was out there going across the desert, but you can see movement, but there's no movement. But there was movement, okay, but it was a mirage. So, and then there was the time when a memory was used to comfort me, but it was used as an illusion to mask the fact that what I was looking at wasn't what I was looking at.
mhm,
So, and by just recognizing the flaws in the illusion, allowed the illusion to fall away and for the truth to be revealed.
mhm,
And when I saw that, it was like, okay, so once you break through that matrix of what is an illusion, illusion is all around us. Illusion can take any form. It can be a psychological form that keeps us in different stuck states. All of this stuff comes under MK Ultra programming. When I was listening to these lovely chaps earlier on, this MK Ultra programming is going to come out really strong and hard, really fast. Everybody's going to be triggered. It's just going to be poof right. And why is everybody suffering from MK Ultra? Well, there is such a thing as a sleeper cell, and we've all been programmed one way or another. And when they want you to come out and display a certain persona or a personality or triggers, they'll do it. They'll just put that trigger out there. You'll start behaving in ways that you didn't even know. So be aware of your actions, the reactions and actions of people around you, because this can be important one day when suddenly they switch the switch and everybody's gone zombie.
Oh yeah, so the CDC for a long time, and it was done in such a way that was, with humor, but it had been on there for a long time. I don't know what the webpage looks like right now, but if you go to the cdc.com or .org, whatever it is, they have something that was called the zombie apocalypse. And you see these staged videos of people just dropping and oh, what's going on? And I feel like those are definitely staged, but I think it's something that people will be responding to. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you had an awakeness or an awareness of your surroundings, but were carrying on doing something else that you
Yeah,
were not really
yeah,
giving permission to do so or felt like you weren't. So it's just it's almost like a disembodiment without being disembodied. It's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, so this zombie apocalypse, I believe, is, and again, I don't think things are going to play out the way most people think they
yeah,
are. It's not going to be a boom. No, it's going to be the frog in the boiling pot, and you're going, oh shit, we're here.
yeah.
Things are just going to manifest, and that's what they want to, that's how they're going to manifest some of this stuff. But again, I still feel like that we have the ability with enough raising of awareness and not being, you know, that squirrel mentality, and making sure you don't have the goldfish syndrome, that you're able to
Um,
remember things. That's, I know they're saying, well, that's not true. Goldfish have a memory. Yeah, they do. But albeit said, the analogy is there, and there's enough history involved that we can realize that we need to really take ownership of what we're looking at, what we're thinking about, and we don't have to lift a finger to make the changes for the good of everyone.
yeah,
We can do it with manifesting with our own thought life. Period. Start with your internal dialogue.
yeah, yeah.
Your internal dialogue is absolutely massive,
Oh,
massive.
man. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at first you might start arguing because, I mean, when we grew up, we were told not to talk to ourselves. Okay, don't be like that guy walking down the street there. He's talking to himself. That's crazy stuff. Don't do that. Don't get caught doing that. But one day, when you stop that person, oh, who are you talking to? You know, oh, I'm talking to anybody who is out there, anybody who is listening. And I'm
Mhm,
like, oh, okay, okay. And then you go through life and you see hundreds of people doing it. You see hundreds of people. Then you start catching yourself doing it.
mhm,
And the fight is, oh no, I can't be doing this. And then it's
mhm.
like, no, no way. I'm going to have a conversation with my invisible friend who's walking along with me. Watch out, don't stand on them. Because it's an energy thing. It's about our energy space. If we're having that dialogue where I see it as two bubbles, like I'm one bubble and I'm having a communication with an invisible that nobody else can see, but the energy's there and I'm having that energy conversation with them. So it's like, yeah.
Even within
Uh,
yourself, though, having those conversations, there's nothing wrong with it. Because how your brain functions is, it's not just a single modal um, device,
well,
if
it's
you will. It is an organ that will have its ability to function, take information, and be able to spit it out for your health and
yeah,
safety. Is that you're engaging when you speak, you're engaging in something that's not just kinetic. So the mouth is moving and the ideas are coming, and it's this very complex, pathway or pathways. But you're also, when you speak, it creates this bubble
yep,
that is multidimensional. So
yep,
it's not just auditory. It's something that is physical, affects your physical body, and it affects things that you cannot see. So you're able to kind of integrate a lot more of what you're saying And you can kind of determine whether that's true or not. You can make those adjustments.
There was something you said I was going to say. Oh, self-talk. Self-talk is very important. You can self-talk you can self-talk into depression, but you can also self-talk out of depression. You can self-talk yourself into the highest possible position that you want to see yourself in. All right, so it's how you deal with you, how you give yourself that appreciation, that consideration, the gratitude for the work that you've done to get to this point, even though there's madness and chaos, happening all the way around us, as long as we stay calm, right, and go with and use our, initial thought process, we should be fine. We should be fine. We have innate knowledges about plants, yeah, plants and fabric and how to stay warm, the basics. Um, just before we wind up, I want to just cover a little spot on the self-sufficiency side. With what's going on out there, there's going to be some panic buying. There's going to be some crazy waves of emotions that go over people and put them into different predicaments or situations out there. Please stay calm, not just for your own safety, but for those around you. Get the things that you know that you're gonna need. The medications, clean drinking water, the supplies that you need. But I would say be careful. Don't tell everybody what you're getting. We're going into, and we've already got stuff happening here in New Zealand that's showing signals. Every country, now that the button has been pushed, and I believe this started with Elon Musk's rocket that exploded with the so-called satellites on board. I found it very interesting that it took out the entire base, that particular part. There are still bridges falling down. There is what I call a silent warfare going on, and it's increasing now. So be aware of your surroundings, of your emotions, of the triggers. When it starts to make itself known to you, face it and say, what are you? Why are you here? You know. Anyway, do your best to keep doing what you're doing because we're still here, mate. We're still here. And it's been awesome again, Auric. And we'll do this again as soon as we're up to it. I don't mind doing these spontaneous throwouts. I think it's a good thing. If you're out there and you've got some good stories or good experiences that you want to share or go deeper with, we both do personal readings. We both do group readings. Come on, share with us, see where we go with it. So anyway, thank you again for being part of this amazing journey in time and space. Wee 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 doo doo.
Yeah, we're hoping to be back on the 27th. We'll see how that works out. I don't know. I'm gonna throw that out there at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time. And we'll just hope for the best because eventually this is all gonna be up and running. Just some technical difficulties that we're hoping to get worked out in the last next couple of weeks. And we'll be able to say what we want. And we won't have to say things like, pardon my French, because I definitely won't. And I will have some very fun and colorful things to say because, you just have to you have to have respect for those community guidelines. I mean, you don't have to, but, anyway.
It's all under entertainment. It's all under entertainment.
100%. I don't know. I'm entertained. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely entertained, but. All righty. So, yep. So thanks so much, everybody. We're gonna repost this on Rumble, and please do like, share, and subscribe. The information and contact details will be in the description box below. And everybody have a great and fabulous week.
Existence.